It's now 5:30. We'll call this meeting to order. I would like to make a motion to appoint Doug Smith as chairman of the board.
I'll second.
I was wondering if you could second. I was going to say, if you didn't second it, I was going to be really ticked. Voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we'll call the
meetings.
We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll stand. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call. Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Smith are present. We'd like to open up to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any of the items on the agenda, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting. We have any administrative business, Mark?
I don't have any administrative business, but I understand there may be a item.
I've got several things I want to talk about, if that's all right.
At the end of the meeting, or?
Well, whichever you want. This is a request from the American Legion Bicycle Fund. Over the 8 years I've been here, I've presented this to the board, and the last 4 years, the American Legion has donated over 500 bicycles to children in the community that maybe aren't quite as fortunate as others. The Lansing Correctional prisoners repair and paint used bicycles. The money would be used for parts, paint, new seats, etc. I make a motion to give the American Legion Bicycle Fund $1,500 for the Special Parks and Recreation Fund for the repair and use of bicycles to be distributed to the Leavenworth County residents.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay, I'll second it for any.
Well, they want $1,500, and we have $25,000 in the fund that can be used for that. So we have plenty of money.
Okay, this is okay.
Yes, this is, I did check with county councilor to make sure that it was a legitimate request, and it is a legitimate use of the money.
Okay.
So.
Here's a copy of the...
That's fine.
Okay.
It's,
this shows where we have $25,461.51.
Yeah, I know we got quite a bit of money in
Yeah.
there. So, anyways, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. The representatives from the American Legion Bicycle Fund really appreciate it, and they did want me to relay the appreciation, and they will make sure that those bikes are distributed to Leavenworth County residents.
I believe, didn't they return some funds they didn't use on another thing?
It wasn't on the bicycle
right,
fund.
It was on another thing.
It was on, I think it was on the baseball program.
Right. So they don't ask for money that they're not going to use. So. Anyways, okay. Have you had a chance to look at all the stuff on the consent agenda?
I have. Do you have any?
I don't have any questions.
I don't either. I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as stated.
I'll second it. Any discussion on?
No.
All right. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So, we ready for GIS quarterly report? His last quarterly report?
Well, don't make it sound that bad, or he might not.
He'll be sitting in on them, but he won't be presenting them.
Jeff,
Well,
just be careful how you do this presentation, because it could be your last one.
I know that's right. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Jeff.
Just over the last quarter, some of the more important things that we worked on, as always, maintenance of our existing layers. We constantly keep hundreds of different map layers current with any changes as they happen. This labor-intensive task takes up about 70% of our time. Anytime a tax district changes, gravel road is paved, census block changed, a pond is built, a street's vacated, a person is buried, a new fire hydrant put in, we update all those map layers daily. Statutory-wise, as required by state statutes, we keep the appraiser's office parcel map, ag use map, and soil map layers maintained. As the deeds and plats and surveys come in, we update those daily. We get about 15 deeds a day and a plat or a survey about once a week. So these include straight name transfers, parcel splits, combinations. Parcel layers changes also include right-of-way changes, vacations, city limits. We do about 7,000 map changes in a year. Also by statute, we're required to keep the NG911 data up to date. I'm the data steward for the Sheriff's Department's NG911 data. So anytime the address changes, address points and address range centerline files changes, we turn that into the state NG911 committee. Creation of new layers. The 5 district commission map, since was passed by the voters, my staff's been working on the new district map for obvious reasons. I've recused myself from working on this map. The challenges we had with this map, though, is using the 2010 data versus new projected data. The criteria is you can't split voter districts or census tracts. So the polygons are difficult to work with in creating new boundaries and keeping the populations within the tolerances required. And we're going to talk about that later tonight. We loaded new software on our server that allows us to synchronize our NG911 data with the city of Leavenworth. By statute, we do all the NG911 mapping for the entire county, including all the cities, except the city of Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth. So since the city of Leavenworth does their NG911 data, we synchronize our NG911 map with theirs. We attended the Kansas Association of Mappers Conference. We applied some of the new information to our local mapping practices and their associates. This improves the services of all our mapping clients. The new 2018 photos are in. We used them immediately for the appraisers to comply with the state PBD guidelines to reappraise agricultural land in the county. We're disseminating the photos to other departments and municipalities across the county for use in their projects. We cost shared with the cities and participated in the MARC flyover, which saved the county about $50,000 and each city probably about $30,000 by participating in that coordinated effort. We're putting together a crime map for the county attorney's office. The map will delineate areas associated with prosecuted crimes in the cities and in the county. Next, we're going to be working on a crime report map, which will be slightly different. These map layers will help law enforcement determine areas of concern more easily. Our mapping software even has an extension that can predict crimes once enough data is correlated. I'm retiring, like Doug was saying, at the end of this month, so my GIS analyst is more than capable, I think, of keeping up the level of service we provide to the county and the cities and our community. We also cross-trained planning and zoning personnel to help with GIS duties until the new tech that we're hiring is up to speed. I put a lot of work in creating this GIS department over the last 30 years, so I have a vested interest in making sure of its future success and the service to our customers. It's been said Leavenworth County has the #1 GIS department in the state of Kansas, so I take a lot of pride in thinking that I had a part in that and that our county has this great resource. Budget-wise, or where we should be, even with my retirement, I kept our budget in the black. So.
Question, Jeff. You said that we saved $50,000 by joining in with the Mid-America Regional Council.
That's correct.
And that brought me up to this. I brought you.
Okay, thank you. I was unable to attend today.
I brought you the packet for the MARC that we are a part of. This is our budget for 2019. They want you to read this over next month, which will be on the 18th. They want us to approve that budget or.
Okay.
see if we can accept it. What I really wanted to know is, I want to ask Mark a question that was brought up at earlier meetings. What is our dues to Mark?
The dues,
Yes.
I don't know off the top of my head, Commissioner. I'd have to look up the exact amount we
I
pay.
believe it's like 17,000.
Well, that's what
It's based upon your budget and your population, so it can vary a little bit, but
Well, I looked at some of the documents down there today, and that's what I come up with, and I thought that
I thought it
was
was
too cheap.
17,000.
And I thought, oh, this can't be right. That's why I wanted to ask you.
I think when that question came up, we were paying for, I think on the bills that
I
day,
guess-
we were approving some 911 funding,
Right.
and I think the commissioner that brought that up was under the impression that that was part of our dues, and
Yeah.
it's not. It's
No.
part of a fee that we
No.
pay to participate in the.
Well, my point is, it's paying us to be a part of MARC. Not only do we get this 50,000, it saves us 50,000 there, Jeff does every year after year, or not year after year.
Every
but-
other year.
Every other
Every
year.
2 years, yeah.
And it saves the cities within
And
the
it
county.
saves the city
and-
too.
And it also
So-
saves us a lot of money on the 911, actually, too.
Yeah, I could give you a dozen instances where Mark has saved us a lot of money.
What was the first cost when you first came on for the aerial photos?
$320,000.
320.
Yeah, 1986.
When we
paid-
did it by ourselves.
Yeah, we
Right.
flew on our own.
I remember.
Today's dollars, that'd be quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit more.
Technology is partly,
Right.
but it would cost us about $70,000 to fly on our own today. And it ended up being about $34,000. And then the cities kick in part of that money, so it saves them money, saves us money. And Mark does the contracting for us, so saves that part of it. They do the MSAGs for the addressing. I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but I know they do a lot for dispatch, hardware and software and personnel, so.
Plus the road and bridge grants that we get.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things they do.
I remember several bridges that we did out here, and High Prairie, which sticks in my mind, I think we got over $100,000 to help on that bridge.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent for being a member of Mark.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all.
Okay.
Job well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. We're ready for our work session on the new district boundaries.
Well, I still have a few. Do you want to wait till after?
Technically, we will adjourn from our regular meeting and go into work
Oh,
session. So
okay,
if you have
yeah.
items,
Go
now
ahead.
would be the time.
There's been a kind of a, I guess you'd call it a rumor going around that they were wondering what I handed out after the last meeting. Well, I went over to the district court and I got this document. And what this document is tells how the former commissioner was put into office. And that's all I was doing, was giving this out to people who were interested in it. The news media, every one of them asked me, how did they get put into this office? So this is what I did. I just want to be truthful and upfront and let that be known. You can go over there and get a copy yourself. I have gotten several copies. This one, I guess, would pertain to David. I don't know if it's you or Mark. I got a letter in my inbox from Kelly Law Offices.
Commissioner, inasmuch as that pertains to a claim being made against the county that has not yet been fully investigated or discussed by this board, I would suggest to you it's in the best interest of the county not to bring it up in open session.
Well, okay. I guess what I wanted to know was, where's the original letter? I don't know anything about this until I got this letter.
I couldn't answer that for you, Commissioner. I'm sure it was circulated.
Okay. Somebody, I guess, had to get it. I mean,
Well, Commissioner, it was addressed to the Board of County Commissioners, and I received a copy of it, so I can only suggest it probably was circulated to the members of the board and staff.
Except me.
I couldn't answer that, Commissioner.
Okay. Let's see. I guess that's all I have then.
Okay. Before we adjourn and go into the work session, just want to bring up speed. I went to a Basehor City Council meeting last Wednesday night. After the meeting, Representative Willie Dove and myself, we had met with the mayor concerning the urban growth management area that Basehor's discussing.
Did they say how?
No, they have not. They've hired someone to do this for them. There's been some concerns from residents in the rural area about annexation and the control the city will have over the rural area. The mayor is going to, in the near future, hold a public information meeting at one of the schools so he can handle the crowd. But right now, they haven't decided on what they're going to ask for and how they're going to approach it. So
I guess I would want to ask a question that I've always been the point that if you don't know it, ask it. If they say they want a mile and a half and there's county roads that are out that way, do they have to take care of the county roads then? Or
no,
we?
We'd have to. But, you know, my question on that would be, if it's in the urban growth management area and then we decide to put asphalt down or pave in place without doing it to city standards, are we going to have to do that to city standards?
Well,
that's all the stuff that's got to be worked out.
I was going to say, there's a lot of things that has to be worked out before they can just say, this is what we'd like.
Right. And until they may give a proposal, actually the proposal would go to our planning commission first, correct? Being we're a zone county, would any urban growth management area have to be approved by our planning commission?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, any change to your land use planning and zoning would have to go through the proper procedures, which would include review and determination by the planning commission, and then finally submitted to this board.
Okay. So it'd be a while before it even got to us. But the statute, if anybody wanted to look it up, that I think they're using, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be KSA 12-749.
That's one of them, Commissioner. There are several statutes that would interplay with each other on this matter.
Okay. So there's more than just one. All right. So,
But
the public just needs to know that as soon as Basehor identifies what they're going to be asking for.
I had a meeting also with Mayor Brewer, and he indicated to me, which I'm not going to indicate tonight, how far out he was wanting. But I've had this meeting probably a couple months ago, and for his urban growth area, and he asked me if I would be in favor of it. And I said, well, there's a lot of questions that has to be answered before you can answer that question.
And that's what I think his meeting that he's going to hold at the school, he will have the person they hired to do this, and they will be answering any questions that the public would have, plus the questions that we might have. Yes, sir.
What's Basehor's current population?
They're a little over 5,000, I believe. They're not quite 6, I don't believe. Or are they 6? They're over 6,000. They're still a city of the third class, so
Right.
they haven't moved.
They have
census.
reached the population limitation if they wanted to change.
If they wanted
That's what
to.
I was
As
going by
Tongi,
is
you
because
know,
they
when
haven't.
Tonganoxie reached that threshold of being able to change to a second class, they chose the option to do that. Basehor, I believe, has reached the threshold, but they have chosen not to move to a second class, and they're not required to. I believe the requirement to go to a second class is 10,000.
Right.
That's.
Right.
That's a requirement.
But
Well,
up until
I knew
then-
they were at the threshold of that, and I just was assuming that because they didn't go to a third class, that they didn't probably meet the criteria, but it's not,
No.
that's not the case at all.
That's correct. That is correct. There's a lot of changes that would have to change or be implemented. For instance, on their fire, you have to, I think, do a
Have to form a
different
fire district or
resolution
have
on
your
their
own fire
form of
department.
government. You know, there's some requirements that they just didn't want to do at this point.
I guess they have their reasons, but.
Right.
But just to let everybody know, as soon as Baser figures out what they are going to do, they will hold meetings, and then obviously our planning commission will have meetings, and also, I'm speaking for just Bob and I, we would have public meetings on it.
Right,
So, but it would have to happen pretty quick though, wouldn't it?
that's right.
So,
I'll be
I'll
going.
speak for the new commissioners. We will hold public meetings on this.
Yeah, Jeff will be here.
So, that's all I have. Have anything else, Commissioner? Then a motion to adjourn into the work session.
Second, or is that your motion?
That'll work.
Second,
How do you vote?
aye.
Aye. All right, we'll open up our work session now.
We're having a work session tonight to discuss proposed maps for the 5-district commission. We actually have 2 maps that we have looked at. We are using the 2017 proposed estimates for population. We have looked into this. David's actually looked at some Attorney General opinions, and we do believe that we can legally use the 2017 estimates that were supplied by the Secretary of State's office through the Census Bureau. Do you have anything to add to that part, David?
Unless the 2018 figure becomes available.
Right, and we just do not have that at this point. So, the first map that we have is a map that we presented, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, maybe, that has been right there on our website for the public to view. But due to some disparity in some of the projected population, we've also looked at a second map. The second map does move Alexandria Township from what we now would have as the 2nd district into the new, I'm going to say 5th district. You know, it doesn't make any difference. Into the new 5th district, which then, and let me turn this, I apologize that we don't have this up on the board for the public to see. I'm going to bring it up here so that the board can see it and the public can see it a little more. All right. The only difference, the absolute only difference in these 2 maps is moving Alexandria Township down into the new district. The city lines remain the same, and the other township boundary lines remain the same. As Jeff and David have said, we are now under a hold through the Secretary of State's office and the Bureau, the Census Bureau, due to the fact that they have already started working on the 2020 census. So we cannot move precinct lines, township lines, we're on a hold there. And so these maps conform with the hold that we have placed on us currently. We do realize that after the 2020 census, which we will begin receiving that information in 2021, that we may again have to make some proposed changes, okay? But at this point, I believe that these maps represent the county to the best of my ability. Does anybody have any questions on these maps?
Adding
Now-
Alexander Township to Tongi, Reno, and Sherman, what's that do to the percentage in population on all the other districts?
Down here, Doug, Jeff and Tyler put on the map the differences. It's very, I don't know, it's all within probably 1,500 people altogether, between the lowest and the highest. I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, I can.
2,000 people. Between the highest would be the blue, which would be here. Now, I think it's important to realize that we, in preparing these maps, are kind of looking towards the future. We're kind of looking at having to make less boundary changes with the next census that comes through. Even though at this point, with this map, I can look at either one of these maps, the blue here is the highest. This is Easton and Kickapoo and the north part of Leavenworth City. If you look at projections that are being made, this part of the county is certainly not gaining population as the south part of the county is. In fact, we can look at areas up in this blue that are losing population. I can use the city of Easton as an example. I can use some property in North Leavenworth that is going through some redevelopment, that they're losing some population. So we do look for this area to be less than it possibly was even in 2010. I personally liked this first map over here better because I thought it gave each of the commissioners, whether it be a current or a new one coming in, more county representation along with city representation. And I thought that that was very important since they are elected as a county commission. They're not elected just as a city commissioner. So in that respect, I liked this map better. The decision is not mine. The decision is up to the board. You will be making the decision on taking one of the recommendations that we have forward or wanting to evaluate a different map. This is just a work session. I'm certainly open to any questions that you may have or that the public may have, because I think it's important as a work session to discuss this now. I think it would be good after this work session to at least come away with a recommendation that we can move forward with a resolution to adopt, so that we then can move forward with the process of the parties appointing and the election that will have to take place for the 2 new board members.
On a regular census, what would be the percentage difference in population in districts?
There really has not, we're not bound by a certain percentage
Okay.
through any of this. At one point, you know, we had thought 5–10%, you know, but in reviewing the statute, there is no certain percentage that we are bound by. If you read, and David has got the statute there, he could probably quote that about being as compact as and contiguous as possible.
Population-wise on these two maps, much difference?
Well, there is some difference in the pink area, which would be the new district. Now, you can look at it two different ways. You know, I could look at somebody over here in this district, a citizen that might say, well, we don't have as much representation as someone in this area because this commissioner, whoever is representing this area, would, you know, have less people to represent. So maybe their citizens would have more representation. You know, you can look at it different ways. We want to follow the statutes and the regulations put in front of us to the best of our ability. And we're trying to put the information out there to the Board of County Commissioners to make the best decision that they feel is for the best interests of our citizens. We're not looking at voter registration numbers. We're looking at actual population figures.
Actually, there's
No gerrymandering involved. This is population. We're not looking at one district better than the other district, nothing like that.
So, in both maps, District 1 looks like there's no change.
There is no change.
Okay.
Like I said, this township, which has about 950, has about a 950 population in Alexandria, maybe 1,000. That's the difference. One township.
Where you count the prisoners?
We do not, when the state looks at redistricting representative districts, they have to consider the prison. The county does not have to consider the prisons, nor do we have to consider the residents at Fort Leavenworth.
Sometimes they're counted, sometimes they're
Right. No, the state does have to consider those when they're looking at like state senate and state rep, but the county does not. Yes.
In the initial proposal, the one that's up on the website right now, it's showing over 3,000 in disparity between the largest and the smallest versus the new proposal, which seems to bring them a lot closer together in terms of overall numbers. So what was the reason that you were favoring the...
I just was trying to give each one of the commissions, you know, equal number of townships. But it doesn't make any difference. These population figures here are very, very close. I don't know that they could be any closer, quite truthfully, looking at how we cannot split a precinct. Bill?
The question or comment I have on both of those two maps is, I find that the pink in either case is very linear and not concise. Now, comparison I take over there on the right side, laser, which is square.
Mm-hmm.
That's as close as you're going to get to being a circle. But then on the right, the pink, makes the...
Are you talking about this?
Well, both of them.
Talking about Fairmount and Stranger being square, and then the L shape for Sherman, Reno, Tongi, and Alexandria.
Well, we just looked at population.
I understand, and I understand that we're saying that you can't split voting districts, whatever that means. But why not? Can you split Stranger Creek? I understand that's 2 words or what it is already. And you can add over to Basir and add Sherman down to the Basir. It makes everything more concise. At least they're squares rather than ching-ching. Right-hand turns, left-hand turns.
Alpha Leavenworth.
I could split Stranger Township. I do not want to split Stranger Township because of the questions that the voters have out there. I realize that this map is not voter registration numbers, but we, or I, am very concerned about the voters. I'm
He's talking about the creek.
No, I understand there's
I
a
thought you
stranger
meant
one and
this.
stranger two.
Stranger, Walnut,
Yeah.
and Stranger,
I can
Stranger.
split stranger, and stranger walnut. I can legally split these two. I did not, I could split stranger from stranger walnut.
Then you're back to another L shape.
But that is the only change I could do. Now, but I didn't want to because I think it causes a lot of voter confusion. And, you know, it just wasn't what I considered to be for the best interests of Leavenworth County.
Well, I think what Bill's asking is if you can split it by the creek.
No, I can't split it by the creek.
And the creek is a natural boundary by the census?
But it doesn't matter, I cannot split at this point, I cannot. I mean, we're bound to make no,
Because it's a township, it's an entire township.
Right.
You have to
They're
take the
not
whole
splitting
township from
townships.
no, I mean, I can't.
Well, I find it very confusing if the guy who up there in the very north end of either pink has to know what's wanted, desired by the voters down there in the very southeast corner of Sherman.
Well,
It's a long way.
You just have to go to the Linwood City Council meeting. Yeah. Yeah.
Straight line distance or by county road, it's gonna be a long way.
We considered that. That was another reason why initially this map was the one that I proposed. I still like this map the best. But it doesn't, the board needed to see the disparity in the numbers. That's my obligation that they needed to see. Do I feel that Alexandria Township probably has more in common here? I do. But it doesn't mean that they cannot be included in this district. So
Yeah.
it's not my decision.
I think it's important to remember that the drastic changes in population from the north end to the south end.
Mhm.
If you make the numbers completely even, exactly even today, you're going to have more changes in 2020.
Mhm.
So the map on the right represents the least amount of changes projected for the 2020 census.
What is the projection of changes that may occur, or may be forced to be made with the 2020 census?
The north end of the county is going to go down in population, the south end is going to go up.
But that's gonna be compensated by whatever the growth of the whole county is, because nobody's gonna get a full share of that population growth. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, it's going to be divided.
It's gonna be, if you grow by 10,000 people, you're gonna use that 10,000, I would think, to balance out everybody a little more.
Well, you're going to,
Yeah,
once
that's
the
the problem.
districts are drawn, you know, you don't.
That's the problem, the 10,000 people you're talking about are mostly going to be in the pink and the red.
You're not gonna grow 10,000 people in just pink, you're gonna grow 10,000 people in the county.
In the whole county.
I don't know.
Well, I'm just using that as a figure, but
Right.
everybody's gonna get a slice of that 10,000. If we gotta cut some and grow some, that's how you balance it.
But that's what I'm saying, though, you're going to make more changes if you make the numbers even today.
What is the magnitude of the changes?
You might end up with a
Well-
commissioner in the wrong district.
Danny, I wanted to say that I really feel that including Cuyahoga County in each one of these is very important. You know, we have city representation already. The goal was not to have just city representation. And doing it like that, like the second map, you definitely have a much more evened out breakdown of county city.
That's right.
22%
Well,
difference.
you know, this is a work session. I think the board has quite a bit to consider here. I do hope that, you know, we can walk away at least by the next meeting with direction given to me to draw up the resolution, to go ahead and move forward with the new boundary lines. Dean?
Yes,
How far down in the city of Leavenworth does that purple district go down to?
Right over here?
The one on the left.
They're the same.
It's the same. This,
Purple.
No, the purple, how far down
Oh,
in the
here?
city of Leavenworth, what
it
street
goes-
does it go to?
I can tell you. It's gonna go, yeah, it's going to go down,
It's along Spruce for part of the way.
yeah, but most of the time it's going down here on, yeah, Spruce. It cuts down a little bit and actually goes down to Ohio here. I know you probably can't tell it here, but you can look at each one. You know, Jeff has defined here, or Tyler has defined where the precincts are. Actually, these lines right here are what the current First Commission district is. We did take one precinct, 4-6, out of the first district and move it to the second district, because this would be 4-6 through here. That would be the only change that we made. Yes, David.
Mr. Chairman, members of this commission, if I might, there is some statutory guidance and opinion guidance as well as judicial decisions that you should take into account in making these decisions. The statute in question is KSA 19204A, and it requires that the current board adopt a resolution dividing the county into the number of districts approved by the voters. In dividing the county, the board shall divide the county into commissioner districts as compact and equal in population as possible and number them. There's quite a few Attorney General's opinions and case law with respect to those two issues, and I'd like to break them down into two parts. The first being compactness. There's no specific definition of compactness, but there is an Attorney General's opinion that offers this guidance. Member districts of a governing body are considered compact when the boundaries of the member districts are drawn so as to include areas of closely united territoriality. The requirement that member districts of a governing body be compact is intended to prevent political gerrymandering. A violation of the requirement that member districts be compact generally requires an affirmative showing that such districts were intentionally so drawn as to produce an unfair political advantage. So that's the touchstone with respect to gerrymandering, which has to be avoided, and that's one of the primary elements in compactness, as well as territorial unity. The second issue is that of equality of population. Exact equality is not required. It would be, well, virtually impossible, other than sheer coincidence, to have that occur. The touchstones are as equal as possible without splitting precincts. You cannot split a voting precinct. With those statements in mind, the statute requires that the county clerk or the board, in dividing the district or the county into districts, utilize the last census figures certified to the Secretary of State as of July 1. The 2001 figure was supposed to have been certified by July 1 of this year, or excuse me, 2018. That has not occurred. Falling back to the last one we have, which is 2017, that is the basis for the population figures that are shown on those two maps. Those are the touchstones that the board should use. I would point out that in the map on the right that does not have Alexandria Township into the new, what I'll call, 5th district, there's approximately a 22% variation between the population of what I'd refer to as the 1st district and that new 5th district. Case law indicates that a 5% differential in the population is acceptable. There's case law that says a 42% difference is not acceptable. Somewhere in between there lies the golden land. I would suggest a 22% difference puts us into questionable territory. Consequently, the issue before the board, and it's a decision to be made by the board, is which of those maps is as compact and equal as possible while providing probably the most important rule, which is this: one man, one vote. That's why equality in population is important. And the issue would be, between those two maps, is a 22% difference between two districts of such significance that would be subject to successful challenge. With those comments in mind, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board, but I would state this: the board is granted great latitude in making these decisions. It's a balancing act between those two primary criteria: compactness and as equal in population as possible. I think GIS staff and the clerk's office has done an admirable job in presenting these options to the board. It's the board's decision as to how to proceed.
Yes, Greg?
You say there's no gerrymandering. I ain't seen any figures that demonstrate that. I mean, just visually looking at that map, 3 of those new districts appear to me to be more heavily Republican when you look at the percentage of voters in there versus where the heavily Democratic areas are in Lansing and Leavenworth. You divided up the 2 cities, but 3 of those districts, just, you know,
Well,
generally looking at, seem to be more Republican leaning than it. But you haven't offered any statistics that show how those districts compare to each other in registered voters in each of the Democratic, Republican, and unaffiliated categories.
that's because we really weren't even supposed to. We weren't supposed to look at how many Republicans or Democrats. That's why we could only look at population.
Yeah, but
Now,
you can look at population and manipulate the population. You can divide the county up differently to have a more even representation of the Republicans, Democrats, and unaffiliated in the districts.
I quite
Yeah,
truthfully,
you're saying there's no gerrymandering, but I'm not seeing anything
well, I think,
factual-wise to show that.
you know, I think when I look at gerrymandering would be when I would take this precinct over here and put it with the green and have this blue down here, or take Kickapoo Township and move it down here. You know, that's what I would consider gerrymandering a map. Now, and this is the honest to goodness truth, I no more looked at how many Republicans versus Democrats were in any one of these districts.
I did not hear what you're saying. I'm saying as a citizen, I would like to know that information.
Well,
Before
it's
looking
not.
at this.
It's based on population, not
This has nothing to do with parties.
Yes,
It
give me
really
a
doesn't,
break.
Craig.
Give me a break.
We
You
want-
don't know that unless the information is provided to you. I know for a fact that the heavily Democratic parts of this county are in Lansing and Leavenworth. You've got Lansing and Leavenworth turned up 3 different ways. But I see 3 districts on there that appear generally to be more Republican leaning than they are Democratic.
well,
If
I'm not.
if Leavenworth and Lansing are heavily Democrat, then how did District 2, for all these years, have a Republican sitting on that board? That's my question to you. If they're Democrats, they don't
I would
vote.
just like to see the information.
I'm a Democrat.
You know, I don't know why they
And
can't.
believe me, I wondered this for
I
years.
don't want to see it.
Grace, what
I'm-
you're saying, what would you do if we created that data with the independents we have?
Where are you going to put it?
It would let people know, you know, how the districts are politically aligned.
I
You
certainly,
can't tell me that's not important.
I certainly can supply that information.
Well,
But
that's
it
what I'm
would be
asking,
split
why
if you-
aren't you supplying it?
It's
I-
not definitive.
Because it was not part of the criteria. I can supply it, but it was not part of the criteria that we were required to use. Now,
Well, it's against the law to gerrymandering. If you don't put the numbers up there, how do we know if it's not gerrymandering?
Based on what was just provided to us, doing what he's asking, doesn't that present legal problems for us? Even looking at the numbers, doesn't that present legal problems for us?
Well, I don't know if it would present a legal problem, but it would, I don't want anyone to change their mind because of the lines on this based upon party. Or, because that's not the point. We want equal representation. Maybe in 5 years there's going to be a big change, because right now there are registered more Republicans than Democrats, with unaffiliated being, it's kind of like a 1, 2, 3. But it's pretty equal like that. And so I think we would be more prone to gerrymandering if we saw the figures.
That's what I was going to say. Is if we see the figures, I think that puts us in jeopardy.
Right.
I'm not going to have you change the map any certain way because I'm a Republican. And I think those figures out will just muddy the waters.
It's all projected anyway. When the next census comes out in a couple of years, you're going to be changing the lines again.
Yes, I do.
I mean,
I
maybe
think
not
we will be.
significantly like we're talking now, but you will be changing.
Right.
Because
Yes.
there's going to be additional growth.
There
I get
is.
it. And it's all south of here.
When I looked at the map before, I really only focused on the first district and the second district. And I noticed that some of the first district came into the city limits where the vast majority of it was representing the rural part of the county. Was that to be able to get more population into it, or was there another rationale?
Yeah, we had to get more population. You're exactly right.
Okay.
If you look at the city of Leavenworth, and I'm not trying just to talk about the city of Leavenworth, but that's where currently most of the population is for a city.
Sorry.
So,
Which part of the city of Leavenworth?
well, the entire city of Leavenworth contributes to the majority of the population.
For the county?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so each one of these districts, whether no matter what map you're using, there are 3 districts that will reach into the city of Leavenworth. All 3 districts are going to reach somewhere into the city of Leavenworth.
I have more of a concern, setting aside party,
I understand.
but I do have a concern about the representation being justified for people that live outside of the city limits and those that are being, by the way you're describing it, partitioned inside the city limits, and whether those are being fairly understood as people that live out in the county and have certainly have a different lifestyle than those that live in the city and different needs.
I think your point's excellent. I think your point is
But
absolutely
the opposite of
excellent.
that is true too. The people in the city, can look at it that you're being biased towards the rural part of the county.
Right. But that's why, in looking at this map, and I certainly understand the 22% that David's talking about, but when we originally looked at this map, that was kind of why we gave county townships to each one of the commissioners. Because we didn't want to just have one commissioner be a representation for the city of Leavenworth. We wanted it to be part, we knew that we were going to have to divide up the city of Leavenworth. And so in order to give county representation to each one of the commission districts, it was necessary to split Leavenworth City 3 ways. And I understand your point too, Greg. But if you look, I could break that down at some point. There's probably, if I'm looking at this, I bet you that right here in this area, there's probably more in the city of Leavenworth right here than there is in Easton and Kickapoo combined.
That was my concern.
Right.
Whether that's the people inside those city limits being adequately represented, or whether it's the people that are outside of those city limits.
But other than having 3 commissioners, and that's a very good possibility for the city of Leavenworth, how do you divide it? I mean, she's faced with a hell of a problem.
No, I'm not denying it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I was just trying to understand.
Well, let's go elect 3 commissioners to the city of Leavenworth, and that's what
We don't know if there's another solution if you don't provide us the figures about voter.
I'll give you an example of what I consider gerrymandering. I've lived in Lansing for 25 years. And since whatever year, I've contended, and probably wrong, that they gerrymandered to keep Clyde Graber in the 2nd district for years and years and years. They protected his seat. Why would the city of Lansing elect a commissioner who lives at the Leavenworth High School? That's gerrymandering. That's what they do in the South. So let's get away from gerrymandering. Let's go by population as much as we can by criteria he said, and let's keep politics out of it.
I believe when you look at the rural counties, the districts in the rural part of the county who are more heavy than Republican voters,
I don't think that's true.
well, it's definitely fewer Democrats out there than there are in the city of Leavenworth and North Lansing.
If you look at the entire county, there's more Republicans than Democrats.
No, there's not. The whole county's split up almost in thirds exactly.
I have to have a question here on this. When we go to the election, even though the 2 parties are standing up, is this a general election that independents can vote on as well?
Yes, there is an opportunity. Well, there's going to be a write-in line. First of all, there's going to be a write-in line. But there is an opportunity once the resolutions, well, really, somebody could start collecting signatures today. If they get 5% of the people in the new district signatures and turn it in to me in 30 days after the resolution's passed, they'll go on the ballot. So there is an opportunity, but it is by petition only.
That's somebody running,
right? Nobody can just come in and pay $425 and get on the ballot. That is not an option.
But the voters, the voters are going to be everyone. They're going to be Republicans,
Yes,
Democrats.
yes, it's a general election. I'm sorry, Jeanette, I didn't understand. Yes, it's a general election that everyone in whatever the new district is, they're going to be able to vote.
Can you have multiple independents in one district?
You may, if somebody goes out and gets the sufficient signatures.
Pay the $425 and get the signature?
No, you don't even pay the $425. It is either by nomination of the party or by signatures. But
they have to be unaffiliated.
You have to be unaffiliated to file independent. Now, you can, you're a Democrat today and you start carrying those signatures. Before you file that petition, you have to change to unaffiliated. Yes, Rhonda.
In looking at both of the maps, I tend to agree with you. I like the one on the right the best. Because I'm thinking, if I'm a commissioner and I've got Alexandria Township clear up here, am I doing my due diligence as a county commissioner representing that area when I've got a lot more growth going on down at the southern end of the county?
You are if you vote to do County Road 30.
Well, and I'm thinking as a resident in Alexandria, am I thinking, you know what, he or she is really not representing me too well because all the focus is down south. Whereas the map on the right is equally distributed across. So it looks like what's going on in those areas. I mean, Kickapoo and Easton are pretty much sisters. I mean, the people are the same. What they're doing for a living is basically the same. I mean, and then your city people, I just think it's this, you're more equal in the type of people living in those areas.
Well, that point is exactly what the board has to consider. I mean, that's why this map was drawn. This map was drawn because of the population. So, and as David said, The board now has a decision to make. And it's probably not an easy one. I don't see any other way to necessarily draw this map out any better unless I could split townships or precincts, and I cannot. Yes?
You said that if you chose the option on the right, it would cause less change after the new census in 2020. Could you explain why that is?
Well, we'll have updated figures for another, well, really 3 years, 18, 19, and 20. And if you look at the growth that has happened since 2010, our last census, and then you look at projections, the south part of the county that's where we've noticed the growth. We have grown in the last 7 years, 6,000 or 7,000 people, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually quite a bit.
So if you chose the map on the left, and after the 2020 census, are you saying that Alexandria Township place would probably have to go back over and be part like it is on the map on the right?
I'm saying it's a possibility. We don't know what's going to happen, but I think that is a possibility.
When you're saying growth in the southern part, are you talking south of Baser?
I'm talking Baser. I think we have some big projections for Sherman Township here. I even think that Reno Township, because of Douglas County being here, we see some projections. We see both Tonganoxie and Baser.
Because just a year ago, AT&T didn't even have Sherman Township for any in their 10-year plan for growth for AT&T.
Really?
And that was just a year ago.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't aware of that, so I really don't have anything.
I have one last question. Councilor's comment. You said you cannot split a precinct. Can you split a ward? And doesn't a ward consist of multiple precincts?
A ward does consist of multiple precincts, but the ward's the big picture. And there's 6 precincts in a ward, say. Then you can't just split the ward because you would be splitting a precinct at that time. Like, we can take any one of these lines, and if you want to make this blue go down to here, we can do that, even though it might be in a different ward.
Mr. Van Perry's had made a comment earlier about being compact. Would you consider the map on the right as more compact?
It gives the appearance of being more compact. Again, though, Commissioners, it's a balancing between the two primary criteria, which are compactness and equality in voting, so as to not violate the maxim of one person, one vote.
Most compact is a circle.
And the one on the right is the 22% disparity, whereas the one on the left is not.
Correct.
Based on estimates, not actual census.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make one comment too, this is not, as everyone in this room probably now realizes, an exact science. It is, however, a necessary procedure that the board is charged with, and in fact is mandated to do at least once every 3 years by statute. It's an ongoing process. It's a living process. As census figures come in, that map will change. 20 years from now, it will not look the same. 3 years from now, it may not look the same. But you have to operate on the information that you have, which are those census figures, and balanced against the criteria of compactness.
When you make changes in the future, are you likely to do it in in the more rural areas, like adding Alexandria to the proposed 5th district, or is it more likely going to have the bigger impact by making smaller changes within the city, within the cities? Because each one of the cities touches on a highly populated area.
Well, I don't know. When we did 2010, it was huge changes, huge. And it consists a lot, I don't know, in the city at that point, probably the city of Leavenworth. This map, both of these maps that we're proposing look extremely different than the current 3-district commission map.
The 2000 census to 2010, we had pretty strong growth, and then we had the recession in 8. And I think that's, I don't know how that's going to figure in with this one from 2010 to 20, because we're growing pretty rapidly right now. Basher has a lot of potential home sites, you know, right there in the city limits there. And I believe Leavenworth also has some, quite a few homes or subdivisions that are being developed right now.
I think if you look at population growth, as, say, the city of Basher grows, it's going to shrink in area because you're going on density of population. Most cases.
Right.
The signature of the city.
Right.
Yeah, the district will shrink because the city of Basher will grow.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, you said this is based on population, not registered voters or potential voters in a district. And yet, you quoted the AG rule, or note as saying it was one man, one vote.
One person, one vote.
One person, one vote. Okay, one man, one vote. But now she's talking about just number of persons, you know, population in district, and now we're talking about registered voters.
The statutes read and the criteria is population, not number of registered voters. Because you can't project who may or may not become a registered voter. So you go on population, or at least that's the rationale that has been applied, and that's what state law is.
Okay.
Well, tonight, no decision has to be made. It was merely a work session to answer as many questions as we could. I believe we have that set for the 11th of December.
Yes, we do have, right now, 11th will be the date that you take formal action to approve a resolution that defines the boundaries. Before that time, we would like to, based upon which way you were leaning this evening, we would like to go out and pull together some data and then be prepared to have that on the website so people can actually see it in advance of what you vote on. We could put both maps up, or you could come to a consensus tonight between the two of you which map you'd like us to place on the website. We can move forward with that. I do think there's other data out there, such as the size of the school districts, what they're doing, that support both of the maps that you see before you. Building permits, where the building permits are being drawn. So it's not just the 2017 census data that may or may not be, you say is an estimate, but we've also looked at where are the building permits being pulled, what are the school districts doing in these areas, and that's also how we came to the conclusion on these maps. If you want the closest in population based on the information we have today, it's the map on the left. If you want to use what may happen as far as growth goes in the south end of the county, then that's the map on the right. And I think that's the decision the board probably should make this evening, and so that we can get it out there so more people have an idea and there's not a confusion on which way you're going to go.
I believe Basher had 120 building permits so far this year. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
It'll be north of that.
Tonganoxie, close?
Close.
Basically, population went up 2000 from 2010 to 2017.
Okay.
I think if you look at the school districts, all the school districts in the north half of the county lost population over the last 2 years. Both of the school districts in the south end gained population. Now, Tonganoxie only gained like 10 or 15 people. Basers grew like 600 in the last year, 2 years.
Linwood
So
had-
that's where the growth is happening, and that's why. Yeah, the
Linwood
school
had a
population, which is an
new
indication. That's
development.
also where the building permits are being pulled as well, south end.
City of Linwood had a new development get filled up this year also, just east or west of town there.
So yeah, again, the growth is, that's where the growth is.
Bill?
Appreciate all the great work she's done on this. Gee, I ask people a question now, and maybe I'm expecting too much, but maybe we'll be on the 11th of December. When will we see a timeline for what's going to happen after the first of the year?
We have that timeline.
Well, if they pass the resolution on December 11th, I plan on having an election on March the 11th. I have 90 days to hold that election. The filing dates will be 25, well, the governor, the procedure's going to be the board passes the resolution. The governor then stamps it, yes, this is good. The parties then have 25 days from the date of the governor's stamp to supply the county clerk's office with their nominations, their candidates for the ballot. And it is very tight. It really is. There is not a lot of time to be looking at it. I spoke with the group. It's certainly not my call because when the parties choose who their candidate for the ballot, they will do it by party rules. It is certainly my recommendation that we advertise, that we put it out there to the public, that there is an opportunity to apply to the parties. Many times I get questions that I didn't know about it. And so if the parties can put it out there, or if I put an article out there, I don't mind putting an article out there saying that you have 25 days to contact Sherry Grogan or Rhett Rogers. I'm more than glad to put that information out there. I'll do an article on what it takes to become an independent candidate on the ballot. So we will put as much information out there to the public as we can. This is a big deal. And this is a big deal to the citizens because it was overwhelmingly voted to move to 5 districts. So we are trying very hard to be transparent, to be upfront with all the rules and regulations that we have in place. Dean?
So the parties will in essence select a representative for the general election in lieu of a primary election.
That is very good. That's exactly right, Dean. That's right.
Will those people have to apply to those parties?
Yes, they do. It is my understanding, I don't see Red here, but Sherry is here. It is my understanding that they send a letter to the party chair and they have to have someone from the party, a precinct committee man or woman, nominate them. Is that the way you understand that too, Sherry?
And they have a caucus.
That's exactly right.
So which of the districts would require a new person to be elected?
And that, no, that's a very good question. It would be this district or this district. I'm not trying to be preference. This pink and this aqua over here. What this consists of is the current commissioner, first district, he was elected, he's here. Vicky, second district here. Doug, third district here. So I'm assuming we would call this the fourth district, which consists of a small piece of Leavenworth City, Delaware Township, and all of Lansing. And then what I would assume would be the fifth district is Tonganoxie Township, plus possibly Alexandria Township, all of Tonganoxie City, Reno Township, Sherman Township, and the city of Linwood.
Commissioner Holland, on Alexander Township. Alexander Township, which is currently yours, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
How do you think?
Can you see those, Bob, now?
How do you think the people in Alexander Township would feel about that being attached to Tongi, Sherman, and Reno?
I don't think they would think much about it.
Well, I mean, I'd like to talk to some. I know some of the people out there.
I do too. I know a lot of
them. And maybe if you talk to some and I talk to some, I understand Mr. Van Perry's is coming from about the 22%.
Do we need to have a resolution tonight?
No.
You have an opportunity.
It would be, I think what I said was, it'd be nice tonight to have a map that we could put on the website so people could start getting an idea what it might be versus debate on where it's going to be. But it's not required. By December 11th, we have to have a map that we can pass.
Well, I'm not for waiting till the last minute.
Well, we're really not. I mean, we're going to have a meeting next week, and then the week after is when we're going to vote on it.
We could certainly put it on the agenda next week, if you want to, for any discussion after, you know, if you want to talk to people in Alexandria Township. But really, after next week, only because it will take some time to draw up the resolution, because the resolution names the districts with legal descriptions
right.
In it.
So what do we gain by delaying the decision tonight on the map?
Don't gain anything. We don't gain anything.
Approve one of those two tonight and let her proceed with the resolution.
And that's not going to happen. I'm not voting for it tonight.
What do you want to change? Tell us what we need to change.
This is just scheduled as a...
This is a work session. It's not on the agenda.
We actually can't vote.
Make a decision. Study it to death.
And we gave a date, December 11th.
The lady back there is.
Oh.
And,
You could just make a resolution that you're going to choose one of these two maps.
Well, that's true. We are going to choose one of those two maps.
December 11th. We've already set a date.
But I think that was probably a good point, though. Is it going to be one of those two maps or a variation, or different? We haven't presented.
I'd say it's going to be one of the two.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the two.
So that's,
and then I think
that's good.
I'll get.
You can put both them maps on the
website.
website. But I would sure like to talk to some people in Alexander Township.
I would too.
And I'd like to talk to our counselor a little more on population.
Well, I would like, that's a good idea. I would like that too.
What was it?
Talk about the population.
So if that's it.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Do we have anything else on this?
Nope.
It's consensus that we'll put both them maps on the website, and that'll be the choices that we have. Okay.
All right with me.
Yep.
And I'd say we're adjourned.